If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Follow the money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah. This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Final hour of the program coming up in 30 minutes. John McKechnie is going to be with us. NFL draft will be the topic of conversation as we are getting closer to the combine. Discuss that in pocket plays a little bit later as well. But joining us on the Progressive guest line in enemy territory now, Nick Alberga at the Golden Muzzy to discuss what will transpire a little bit later today on the ice. How are we feeling? What the hell just happened, too? I mean, Canada, I kind of want to say they almost blew it here. We watched earlier today. Nick, can you explain what we just watched?
Guys, I'll be utterly honest and great to be with you. It was 4-0 Canada after 2. I'm like, you know what? I had a long weekend. I'm going to take a nap. I woke up and I was like, what? It's 5-3. But I think, honestly, it happens a lot in hockey specifically where a team's just up and they sort of get complacent. And to my understanding, that's exactly what happened. But for bettors, an absolute nightmare, right, Mike?
Well, for me, because I laddered them up, and then they're up 2-0 after 5 minutes, and I said they're going to win by 6 or 7. With 10 minutes to go, it's still 4-0. I'm not even sweating the. I'm almost lost every bet. It was 4-3 with a minute and a half to go. I mean, it was almost a complete breakdown. A lot of things to ask. Let's get to the bet. Before we get to dissect Canada a little bit more. Let's look at, to me, it's a tough game to handicap tonight now. This is a totally meaningless game. If they would have tied that game 4-4 all of a sudden and went to overtime, all of a sudden Sweden would have been live. And I wonder if the U.S. would have laid down to get Sweden in the final. But we don't get that situation. They're going to rest guys. They're going to give Ottinger the start and goal. USA is $1.80-ish. Got bet up as soon as Canada went up 2 goals, and it looked like there'd be no overtime in this. Total is 6. I mean, either I'd play Sweden plus a goal and a half, or I'd play over 6, but I haven't pulled the trigger. Any thoughts on tonight?
Yeah, honestly, I probably am staying away from this one, but I think you're on the mark with sort of your breakdown. Like, I just wonder how the States looks following the theater on Saturday night. Like, I don't know what your perceptions were, but like, man, that was just tremendous. We have been waiting so long for best on best international ice hockey. We got it, and that lived up to expectation. I thought it was awesome. 3 fights in the first 9 seconds. So I wonder if there's a bit of a hangover from the States tonight. Like, even looking at Sweden to score the first goal of the game, I think there would be a pretty decent price on that. But I think if there's a side to play, it's probably Sweden. It's probably the over as well. You just mentioned it. Connor Hellebuyck not playing in this game. McAvoy's out. Matthew Tkachuk is out. I wonder if we see a bit of a freer, looser type game. Sweden's done. The States know they're going to play on Thursday against Canada. So that's probably the way I would handicap things.
Nick, I don't think there was a bigger non-Stanley Cup Finals, non-Game 7 in a playoffs moment since Olympics in 12, the gold medal game. I mean, I was absolutely overcome with emotion by it. Mm-hmm. It was just the right setting, the right city, the Bell Center, the right political atmosphere, the booing of the anthem, the way they treated the Americans. And it's a relatively meaningless game. It's not the finals of the tournament. And you had NHL officials. You didn't have international officials because, these Norwegian officials, whatever, they're going to call everything. They'll throw them out of the competition for fight. Everything's set up to have that one of the greatest periods I've ever seen, that first period. I want to talk a little bit about Canada. And I know you're a big John Cooper guy, and I've said for many years he's the best coach in the game. A lot of criticism here, though. Let's start out with overplaying his own Tampa Bay Lightning too much. Valid or not valid?
I think it was in the first 2 games, not so much today. Like, this is why John Cooper is such a great coach. And you can't forget, at this level, like, what kind of coaching are you actually doing? Like, these are perennial all-stars in your lineup. But I will say the coaching staff deserves a lot of credit for the tweaks they made in the lineup today. And that was moving Mitch Marner to the bottom 6 and Braden Point, who is a Lightning player, to the top 6. You put him with Connor McDavid, and right away, McDavid rips it up in the first period, and they score. Braden Point scores a goal. So I think maybe justified a bit. Having said that, I think Brandon Hagel's actually performed quite admirably. Like, even the scrap the other night, like, I think he's been really, really effective. And I am a believer in having sort of an identity in your bottom six. I mean, it's one thing to just bring your best players. You can make the same argument in conversation for Team USA. Some guys they left home, namely Tage Thompson with the Buffalo Sabres, right? So I think it's so simple to have, lineups and deployments under a microscope. But I think there was a bit to that in the first two games, not as much this afternoon.
All right, next topic, goaltending. But I want to go macro first here. 30 years ago, in 1994-95, 80% of the goaltenders in the NHL were born in Canada. Fast forward to this year, it's 20%. It's the exact opposite. What happened to a generation that didn't breed great goaltending out of your country?
Great question. And it's funny enough, if you remember the World Cup in 1996, the MVP, Mike Richter, was a guest on Leafs Morning Take, my YouTube show last week, and I asked him that very question. I'm like, what is happening? Because it's kind of a polarizing conversation, obviously, in this country right now. But you look at the American squad, for example, they have three bona fide number one goaltenders. Swayman's going to go tonight, but they have Jake Ottinger as well. Whereas Canada, all these guys are like, you don't feel very passionate about either one of these guys. And, we talked about it. Their best goalie, Logan Thompson, who played for Vegas last year, is not even at this tournament. So Mike seems to think, and I defer to guys who have played the game and have been elite level goalies in this league, seems to think it's just like a wave of momentum, similar to what we saw maybe 20 years ago with Finland. Sweden's had its time, and now it's the States, Russia a couple of years ago. So something leads me to believe in maybe 5 to 10 years from now, Canadian goaltending we'll have somebody come through the pipeline. But it is a really good question because of the drop off significantly in between the pipes since Carey Price.
First game against Sweden, they give up a 3-1 lead, have to go to overtime, lose the point winning in overtime. I didn't think either goal against the USA was a particularly good goal to give up. One of them was worse than the other, but I think you got to stop at least one of those two. He went back to Bennington today in a game they had to win. He gives up late 3 goals in like a 4-minute span. Is there any chance John Cooper starts Aiden Hill Thursday?
Absolutely not. I think the time to do it was maybe this one, but I don't think he's going to do it. We had this conversation after the first game, and Mike host Carter Hutton, who played in the NHL as a goalie, thought they should have went to Aiden Hill. But it's quite clear they're going to live by the sword, die by the sword. But it is, I don't want to say it's perplexing. There is a bit of a background there with Binnington, but it's not like he's had an amazing year. I think he has like an .895 save percentage with the St. Louis Blues. But I think the unfortunate part, I will say and add to this conversation, is that they announced the rosters for this tournament like 2 months prior. So if you make the decision even 2 weeks before the tournament, there are a plethora of different players, including Zach Hyman of the Edmonton Oilers at this tournament. So unfortunate sequence of events. Even the crease, I think, would look a lot different than it would in the first 2 months of the season. But they're going to go with Binnington, and we'll see what happens. I think that game was closer than people give Canada credit for. Obviously, a 3-1 win for the States, and I thought Connor Hellebuck and the back end for the Americans was the story.
Well, I will say this, and you were on with Tim Murray on Saturday morning, and you said USA wins tonight, Canada wins next Thursday, so it's all set up for you. I bet them after the first 2 games plus 150. I thought it was a market overreaction to their overtime win, and then the USA beating Finland 6-1. How confident are you that Canada will get the job done in 3 nights from now?
Look, I'm confident, and I have to be because I'm Canadian, but I will say this American team is stacked. They're filthy, boys. I mean, I have to admit that as a hockey fan. The blue line is what scares me. Shea Theodore of your Golden Knights not playing for the rest of the tournament now week to week. Cale Makar was back. That's going to be huge. He was awesome today. He's the best defenseman on the planet. So I think that makes obviously a significant impact. But I have to side with Canada, and I got to stick with what I said the other day with Timmy and company. I just think you look at some of the gamers, and I think they're a bit disgusted by losing to the U.S., that they're going to elevate their game. I'm talking about Crosby. He was great today. McKinnon was great today. McDavid was awesome. And that's why I think if you're looking at a way to bet that game, I totally agree with you handicapping. It's going to be really, really close. I think you find good value in overtime. We're throwing things back to 2010, guys, because I think it's going to be a really, really close game. I thought the first outing on Saturday was, and I expect more of the same, but it's just something about this storyline playing out the way it did in 2010 all over again that has me picking Canada here.
Nick Alberga with us, host of Leafs Morning Take. I'm here, by the way, but that was a great conversation. So I want to ask you, I'm curious, market-wise, where do you think this goes? Because this opened minus 113 in favor of USA here at Circa, got bumped up to minus 118. Where do you think the market rates these teams, Nick? Where do you think this price eventually gets to?
I think it's going to be at a pick 'em. I don't know. It has that feel where people saw Canada, but then like to your point, we saw the way the game finished against Finland. I just think because it's Canada, there's like an added bonus baked into the price. So I think it'll shift in the next couple of days and maybe feel highly about the American squad. Now is the time to do so. I felt the time to bet on Canada to win this tournament, as Mike brought up, was before this game against Finland. I think it was around plus 175 last I saw before puck drop, but I think that it'll get closer to a pick 'em as we get closer to puck drop on Thursday. But I'm pumped about this one. I don't expect fights left and right, but these are the two best teams by far in this tournament. I'm very curious round two, because I know a lot of the conversation today has been like, why can't they have like a best of three? But neither side, the NHL or the PA, would sign off on something like that. So I'll just sit back and enjoy Thursday night, boys.
For the first time in my life, I might bet the Maple Leafs to win the Stanley Cup. I'm getting really close. I think Joe Woll might put them on his back, and I like Stolars as a backup, and there's a difference with Berube. But who beats who in the Stanley Cup final, in your opinion, right now?
Mike, if you did you realize Mitch Marner played today? He had the second fewest minutes out of any Canadian player. This is a star player for the Maple Leafs. This team is doomed. I'm sorry to say it right now. Watching Matthews ghost in this tournament, watching Nylander ghost in this tournament. I digress. Stanley Cup final. I know they're the front runner, but like Edmonton, it just everything comes back to Edmonton for me. I get the feel of like Crosby like 20 years ago, where he went to one, lost, went back and wins it. And Connor McDavid just so damn good at hockey, guys, that I could see the Oilers back in the Cup final, winning things this time around. The East is very difficult to pick. Like even a team like Washington, like I wouldn't be stunned if it was a team that came out of nowhere. So I'm going to go with Edmonton to win the Cup though again.
Nick, good to talk to you. Thanks, man. That was awesome.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
I hope your team puts up a decent effort on Thursday so Cooper gets to coach in the Olympics.
Sounds good. See ya.
By the way, sweet hoodie for Alberga there at the Golden Muzzy. All right, we'll take a break. Come back. Coming up in about 20, John McKechnie is going to be with us, talk a little NFL draft.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Tell you what, you guys got me fired up for the rest of this NHL season.
God, women's basketball and NHL now. You're turned on.
Well, I got to expand this out, right? There's, like you said, I'm an NBA guy, but there's many other things that we can get ready for here. And the menu in college basketball, as we're getting closer to March Madness, but it's going to start to get whittled down here. And I love Major League Baseball, but got to grind through something else as you get to the early portion of the NBA, or the MLB season too. What do you think of this $1.18 price on this final? USA. This is your spot, by the way. USA minus 118.
Well, I'm probably going to bet the USA because I have plus 150 on Canada.
Okay.
And like, what's the argument for Canada would be tough to beat a team twice, and you could argue this would be the first big game Hellebuck's ever won. I mean, he played great against Canada the other night, but that really wasn't a huge game. It was a huge game emotionally, entertainment-wise, whatever, country-wise, patriotism-wise. But the real game is Thursday when you're talking about winning this Four Nations face-off. So, but Bennington's been bad. I mean, Bennington's been bad in goal, and I think that's the difference in the game.
Numbers he was listed off are pretty poor.
He's had a bad year.
Save percentage under 90.
He's had a very bad year on a bad Blues team.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Aiden Hill's numbers are much better.
Right.
Like, so that was controversial that he went with Bennington to begin with as the starter. And they just keep showing Aiden Hill every time they give up a goal. They show Aiden Hill on the TV like it's the move. He says 0 chance, Nicky said, that we see Aiden Hill on at least as a starter.
5.5 shaded to the under minus 125. Nick also said that maybe some good value on this game going to overtime. You think this is going to be I'm just really curious how this is played. It was 3-1 when they played the first time, but that's like that emotional, we fight 3 times in 9 seconds, right? Everything that you're talking about. Everything sets up really well for like a gritty, physical matchup. Now you got to clean it up because this is the final, and like you need your guys out there. How do you think it plays?
See, so Canada is more skilled and the U.S. is a better defensive team, right? The U.S. wants to grind this game. Canada wants to get out and try to have open ice and play free. U.S. stay out of the penalty box, which they did give up one power play in that 3-team fight, right? And they were able to ward it off. Canada had no power play goals. It's the best power play in the world. I think you're looking at a similar score. So, by the way, the USA-Canada was the only game in this tournament that went under, the 3-1 game. Every other game's gone over, which I thought you could bet every game over until the final because they wouldn't be a hard checking. Nobody wants to get hurt in the finals. It'll mean a lot.
You were feeling pretty good about an under, though, here today before the...
or nothing. It looked like, you're just going to play it out, right?
13th minute of the third period.
And then they pulled the goalie with 3.5 minutes left down 4-1, which you wouldn't even have got to a goalie pulled down 4. And you're thinking, all right, Canada's going to put in the empty netter, and the final is going to be 5-1, and you don't have to sweat it. And then, minute 30 to go, it was 4-3.
So I'll say this: I'm very fired up for this. Have you been betting any player props for these? Or
I never bet player props, never in hockey.
No, seems very random. I mean, hockey, as I always say this, and I say this in like lovingly. I don't mean this I call hockey very stupid because it's a sport that seems like the variance that you deal with on a day-to-day basis with puck luck, and you'll have a team that puts 40 shots on net and you'll get one goal out of it and they'll lose 4-1 because 4 of the 13 shots that the other team got on net went in. I don't know how you deal with the variance on a day-to-day basis and by extension handicap how these games will go from a player standpoint on a night-to-night basis.
I'm trying to handicap teams and situations and maybe goalies that are overrated or underrated. I also think that this expected goals is misleading because when teams get a 2-goal lead, they go into a very defensive mode. The other team's always going to have 2 times the amount of shots the rest of the game because now you're playing defensively. And so then at the end of the game, you say, oh, they had 3.5 expected goals because they had 40 shots, but they got beat 3-1.
Yep.
Right. So I think that's misleading when you carry it into the next game.
So that's why. So when I bet hockey, I'll keep it to the postseason. I like betting series because I like the larger sample sizes where you can feel pretty confident the data kind of plays out over the larger course, you would hope. But to your point, I put more personal weight, like the Corsi for percentage and shot share can get a little slanted, like you said, if the game's going a different way, if you're parking the bus essentially and leading. High danger chances, I think, are they a little bit more predictive than would be expected goals for, right? Because it's the same thing. You're generating high danger chances. So if you're getting a lot of those and those play out in the metrics along with dominating shot share, those are some of the things I'll look for in some of these playoff series.
Yeah, and then the market just might be way off on some of these things, right? I'm not afraid to bet in the NHL playoffs, especially a dog that I think is it's a runaway price on the favorite. In fact, I think you're much more successful than trying to identify teams and pick them series.
Sure. Yeah, I can't wait. I very much like the Stanley Cup playoffs, but I just, we got to follow it now on a day-to-day basis. I'll do it for you, Mike. I'm sure we'll work together more often. You saw the odds to win the Stanley Cup, by the way, and Nick Alberga mentioned it. Big on the Oilers, if I remember correctly. They're 6-1. Hurricanes plus 650. Panthers 8-1. Stars 9-1. These odds courtesy of DraftKings. So with that, I wanted to get your thoughts as we are now entering the bracketology season of college basketball. The important aspects of all of this are we've talked about teams to make the play or to make the field of 68. We've talked a little bit about some of these teams in terms of the larger scheme when it comes to the conferences. The 1 seeds, though, are still up for grabs. And this is really kind of a fascinating thing. You can obviously bet on these odds to win these 1 seeds and where we're at. We saw for the first time the rankings, right? Kind of like the college football playoff rankings. Your 1 seeds, according to the committee now, are Auburn, Alabama, Florida, and Duke. So 3 SEC teams in control of 3 of the 4 1 seeds here. I am very interested in these last 2 spots, though, for these 1 seeds because, while you might have Alabama and Florida in control of these, Houston for sure, I think, is the party crasher. And I think that's really what you're looking for. I don't think you're going to get anybody else to jump inside of the top 4. I think what you're banking on is there's one team that can crash the party, and it's Houston for a 1 seed. And I think you're knocking out a team potentially like Alabama if they continue right to fall a little bit. We'll see if they lose another game. But I do wonder how solid these 1 seeds are right now for the SEC. And I think there's a strong case to be made, especially after the weekend, that Houston is going to be on its way in. Right now, you can get Houston minus 110 to get a 1 seed.
Who do you think is the most vulnerable to Houston to jump?
I would think it's Alabama, right? Yep. I mean, Florida continues to impress.
I give them all marks and credits. They never have flat spots after big wins.
Yep.
I think they have the 3rd most 15-plus, 20-point-plus victories in the country, and they just, they defend very well. I know they went to the Tennessee games where they crushed Tennessee, and then they got crushed at Tennessee. But other than that, there's like no bad marks on their record.
I mean, like you said, there's so many times where I think the one that comes back is, so like they lose to Kentucky, for example, high scoring. They come back, they beat Tennessee the way that you're talking about. A lot of people expect that Saturday that, letdown spot against Arkansas, right? Go on the road. John Calipari's going to have something for you. No, they control the whole game. 71-63, they win in that one. They fall at home to Missouri in a weird spot where they come storming back, end up losing by 1, but they have handled a lot of these so-called flat spots in a really big way, including, the big feather in the cap is to go to Auburn and beat Auburn the way that they did, Florida. Mm-hmm. I think their resume is relatively rock solid at this point right now. Where on the flip side for Alabama, again, only 4 losses, but this schedule Alabama's schedule, this is really what it is about. Mm-hmm. At Missouri, 2 home games against Kentucky and Mississippi State, and then you end the season, your last 3 games, at Tennessee, home Florida, at Auburn.
It's all ranked teams the rest of the way.
Those are all top 5 teams. That's insane that you're talking about down the stretch here for Florida, and for Alabama. And I think it seems more likely that they just slip up while Houston passes one of their biggest tests, if you will, by taking out a team like Arizona, and the rest of their schedule sets up much easier. You do have Iowa State and Texas Tech on the road. We'll see. Texas Tech, I bet against it with Okie State this last weekend, but also gave up 100 in double overtime game to Arizona State, so I don't think it's like the perfect team in the world. And then Cincinnati, Kansas, and Baylor. And if Baylor's what we were talking about here, right, you should be able to add some pelts on the wall and finish this season almost nearly scot-free if you're Houston. I think it's a pretty good spot to look at them at least.
You think they run the table?
I think if they're going to slip up,
including the Big 12 tournament?
I think if they're going to slip up, it would be Iowa State in the regular season potentially. Mm-hmm. I just think highly of them. Again, I still have my questions about Texas Tech. Big 12 tournament, I think, is a likely scenario. You're going to be I can't remember their format. Where do you start at if you're the 1 seed there? You're going to be advanced into the quarterfinals, right?
You're into the 8.
Yeah, correct. 8, yeah. So it's like you're in there already. You have the ability to make that run. And as we've discussed before, we've talked about this on primetime, but we talked about the depth of the SEC. I think you can really make an argument that the Big 12 is not as great in the grand scheme of things. So making a run through that tournament, I don't think would be the hardest thing.
I think Kansas City is a great site for that tournament. And Kansas is not good. So you take away the team that has the biggest home court advantage there. The team that probably has the second biggest is Iowa State. It brings the most fans. That's a short drive to Kansas City from Ames. And then Columbia now, Missouri and the SEC, so you don't have to deal with that. So I think that could be a good spot for Houston, not having to deal with a Kansas crowd probably, meeting Kansas late in the game in the tournament.
And what Alabama's going to have to run through in the SEC? Like you would think.
I told Paul, let's get tickets to the SEC tournament and go to Nashville for a weekend.
Ooh, you should.
You think that'd be a hell of a...
That'd be awesome.
What a trip that would be.
It'd be the best tournament to attend. Right? It'd be great. By the way, Alabama's minus 320 to get a 1 seed. That seems strong considering. Now, again, it's an index prop, but.
How about Florida? What's Florida to get a 1 seed?
Minus 115.
I think that might be worth a bet.
I feel like they've got a better resume right now at this point.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, vsin.com/subscribe. Check it out now. Sign up for as low as $9.99. Get in on everything we do. The daily best bets, exclusive betting splits, upcoming March Madness betting guide, and more. Introductory offer, as Paul says, for less than a box of donuts. Go to vsin.com/subscribe and check it out now. On the other side, we get back to the NFL draft. John McKechnie is going to join us.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Last 30 minutes of the program. Mitch Moss will be back tomorrow. He'll be here at the desk with Mike Palm. So vacation finally ends for the, I was going to say the namesake of this program, but it's not named after him. So I don't know what I was going to do there. All right, let's shout out to the Progressive Guest Line. Welcome in our next guest. John McKechnie is going to join us now for RotoWire to discuss everything NFL draft. John, we appreciate some time today. So let's just start a question that I brought up to Mike Palm, which was, what do we expect with the first overall pick? There's a market up. Which team makes the first overall selection? Titans are the minus 265 favorite, but do we expect the Titans will be making that selection come the draft?
You know, it's a fascinating market. I love that it's open already. It kind of gets your gears churning. But I think in a different class, I think that this could shape up differently as far as the quarterback is concerned, but there isn't really that prize, I don't think, in this year's class. Not someone that is going to feel compelled to move up to number one to get someone like a Cam Ward or even a Shedeur Sanders. I do find that Cam Ward is at this point the safe bet to be the first quarterback off the board. However, even with Tennessee in pretty dire need of an upgraded quarterback, I don't necessarily know that they go that route at this particular time. And again, I don't think that the Giants are going to feel compelled at 3 necessarily to move the draft capital that it would take to get to that first spot just to take a guy like Cam Ward when they can probably stand pat and wait at number 3 and still be able to get him. So I'm still leaning that the Titans go just kind of best player available. I know that kind of fresh start as far as the front office is concerned. Go ahead and get the best player available in this draft. That, in my estimation, is Abdul Carter out of Penn State. Just kind of start there. We did see this year, and it's easier said than done, but the sort of trendy blueprint, which is really something that's tested as old as time. But, with the Eagles, what was kind of the big thing about them? They had tremendous trenches. They were able to get after Patrick Mahomes with just 4 down linemen, getting a guy like Abdul Carter a good start towards that end, adding him alongside Jeffrey Simmons. I think that works nicely.
John, where is the most likely spot that Shedeur Sanders gets taken?
I think maybe not too far from where y'all are sitting out in Vegas. I could see the Raiders being interested. I do think my current expectation is that the Raiders get involved maybe in the Sam Darnold sweepstakes. I do think that, with the way the season ended, Minnesota moves on from him and pushes play on J.J. McCarthy. But the recent movement around Aaron Rodgers no longer returning to the Jets, that firmly puts them, in the running to get someone like a Shedeur Sanders. I think the combine is going to. It doesn't always make or break these quarterback prospects, but I think it's really important for him to stand out a little bit, because I think a fall could end up happening to someone like a Shedeur Sanders, because I don't think that he has the most impressive arm talent. And I think that, that's not the end all be all trait of a successful quarterback, but if he's in there and he's in like the bottom third, as far as like, your velocity metrics are concerned, this could, get a little bit dicey as far as his stock. We could see Sanders no longer be that consensus number 2 quarterback off the board the way that we're seeing right now.
So one of the things that Mike and I have been throwing around here, John, is the sudden love discourse narrative around Jackson Dart. Now, all of a sudden, Dart's going to be the guy that you get to stow away and bench and develop into a stud. What do you make of this recent push in terms of narrative around Dart? Where could he end up going? Could he be a first-round selection?
I think he could be a first-round selection in the sense that NFL teams are always thirsting after quarterbacks, and they always think that they're smarter than everyone else, and they're the ones with the Konami code to unlock sort of project at quarterback. But Dart, he makes some sense. I think he has some tools to speak of. He's mobile, pretty good arm, not a standout arm necessarily. The production metrics during his time at Ole Miss were good, but and I don't mean to come across as lazy and helmet scout here, but I feel like he's just kind of an upgraded version of Matt Corral coming out of Ole Miss a couple years ago. I don't think that offense necessarily does its quarterbacks a lot of favors as far as developing them into being pro ready prospects. And I think Dart is naturally a bit more gifted than Corral was, but I'm not over my skis for him necessarily. I think if he does end up going in the first round, which again is possible, if he's in a position where he has to start right away, I think that's a mistake. I think developmentally speaking, that it's an interesting dart throw, so to speak, but you don't really want to spend a first round pick on something like that. And it does feel like, as far as other trendy names of late, Tyler Shuck, now out of Louisville, bounced around a bunch of different schools, started out at Oregon as the heir apparent to Justin Herbert, spent some time at Texas Tech, finished up at Louisville this past year, had a good year. And I think that he kind of checks the boxes that Dart does as far as, he's 6'4", he's 225. He's not the mobile guy the way that Dart is, but throws a good ball, has that good requisite arm strength. And I think that he's someone that seems to be on the rise. I do have some questions, and it's a function of this current college football era where guys get to play 5-6 years, but it does kind of make me feel a little bit oogie when a quarterback prospect is, past their mid 20s or close to it, like in Shuck's case. So I'm going to resist the urge to be all in on someone like a Shuck, even though he is getting some buzz of late.
John, how do you project the NFL career of Heisman winner Travis Hunter, and where do you think he's most likely to be drafted?
I have a hard time moving off of him going second to the Browns. I think he's at his best playing corner, and I do think that by virtue of him being able to play 100 plus snaps a game during his time at Colorado, this guy is rare. It's uncommon to be able to have that level of durability, and to be able to be as effective as he is on both sides of the ball is truly unique. We don't really see stuff like that coming up to the NFL level to where it's kind of expected that he's going to be playing on both sides of the ball. I think he's at his best playing corner. I do think that he has the most natural traits for that position and the athleticism, but obviously he can hack it at wide receiver. I think it would be tricky for him to be kind of like that full-time wide receiver in an offense. Like if he's cast as a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1, while also being, the guy that's shadowing the other team's best receiver, you're kind of setting yourself up to overextend and, overexpose a guy like Hunter. But if you have him playing every snap at corner, playing lockdown coverage, and then you toss him in there for about a third of the team's offensive snaps as a wide receiver 3, I think that's how you maximize what Hunter can do on the field and maximize his impact without overdoing it.
John McKechnie with us, RotoWire, CFB, and NFL analyst. So we're going to get these markets way down the road when it comes to some of these NFL draft props, but obviously there's some popular ones around these other positions. Let's go to wide receiver. How deep is this wide receiver class in a ballpark amount of maybe the amount of wide receivers we could see going in the first round, a position that has really started to grow in terms of popularity in these first rounds?
It absolutely has. I have a hard time seeing us get to the 7, I believe it was that we got last year. And, it's going to be, the combine is going to do a lot of the work for us. I think as far as firming up where the NFL is on these guys, I think as it stands, there are 4 that, in my opinion, are going to be locks to go in the first round. I think you start out with Luther Burden out of Mizzou and Arizona's Ted McMillan. I think that those two kind of entered the year as the 1A and 1B. I don't think that there's any difference in feeling about them after the way that the season unfolded. Burden maybe didn't play quite as well, take that next step forward as many expected, but I think there's still enough to where Burden is going to end up going in the first of those 2. Matthew Golden really made himself a lot of money by going to Texas this year. You have a guy who starts out at Houston. It just has me wondering, how he slips through the cracks, ends up at Houston, has a couple of great years there, and then really, gets himself onto the national stage this year at UT. I'm confident that he goes in the first round, and then Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, kind of you can't say the Robin to Jeremiah Smith's Batman because he is, older, but he was a great producer during his time at Ohio State. I expect him to be in the first round as well. So that puts us at 4. Trey Harris, Jackson Dart's number 1 target these last couple of years. Also a guy who's on the fringe, was a little bit dinged up this year, but I think he's a really athletic specimen that could put himself on the radar. And then lastly, maybe Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State, a nice size speed combo guy. Big guy, can play above the rim a little bit.
John, that was awesome. Thanks a lot for the early look. We appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks again.
Thanks, John.
Got it. John McKechnie again at Johns_tailgate. John spelled the incorrect way with an H from RotoWire. We'll take a break, come back in Pocket Plays, and we wrap it up here on Follow the Money.
has an algorithm to determine the winner of any given college basketball game.
Someone gives you 10,000 to 1 on anything. You take it. Take it. Take it.
I bet you $20 I can get you gambling before the end of the day. No way. I'll give you 3 to 1 odds. Nope. 5 to 1. Nope. 10 to 1. You're on.
All right, college basketball short slate tonight, but we will get in action. Arizona, money line, plus 110 versus Baylor. I don't think it's the worst spot in the world. 2 competitive games for them. Kansas State on the road, come back home, take Houston to the wire. Obviously think they're a better team than Baylor. Thought the number would actually be Arizona -1 or so in this spot on the road against the Bears. Baylor's beat up, thin center position. Think the Cats can go on the road and get this thing done. Give me Arizona to win this thing outright.
I'm with you there, but I'm going to take the 2. I laid off of Arizona on Saturday because I thought it was a coaching mismatch. I'm no big Tommy Lloyd guy. I mean, he's got the least amount out of his talent since a guy named Mark Few. I wonder where he got that from. But I'm not sure it's that much against Homer Drew. I'll take the 2. I'm also going to bounce back here with Kansas State, having stayed up at elevation after playing BYU. I think that's an anomaly game for them. I don't like this Utah team. I've watched them play 3 or 4 times. Including against Iowa and South Dakota earlier in the year, and wasn't impressed. I'll take the 3, and then let's add the UConn women to win the national championship at 4 to 1. I don't think you're going to get these odds the rest of the way out here. I think they're going to roll. They won't play a meaningful game maybe until the Sweet 16 now.
UConn?
Well, they'll run through the rest of their conference in the conference tournament and probably the first 2 rounds of the tournament.
All right. I like it. Hey, if you ever had your deposit blocked by your bank right before a big bet, or if you've ever needed cash at 2 a.m. for another shot at the tables, Edge Boost has your back. Edge Boost is the first ever bank account built for bettors. With Edge Boost, all your gambling-related transactions will always be approved. No more headaches. For your high rollers, you can move up to $250,000 a day on your Edge Boost Visa debit card with unlimited withdrawals. This works 24/7 for instant deposits. No, never wait for a wire to clear again. Gets better. Every time you deposit into a gambling account, you earn cashback rewards up to 0.5 percentage point. All this for no usage fees, no minimum balance. It's a bank account, not a credit card. No approval required or credit checks. Finally, Edge Boost has a suite of responsible gambling tools to help you manage your bankroll and make informed decisions. What are you waiting for? Go to edgeboost.bet. That's edgeboost.bet. Use promo code FTM. Start at Tier 2 for faster bank transfers and higher cashback rewards. Sign up for Edge Boost today. Last couple of minutes on the program before we hand it off to my usual stomping grounds, VSiN Primetime will join us after this. Couple of things. First off, Truck at Truck1223 checks in on social media. Any thoughts if St. John's runs the table to the tournament? Can they get a 1 or a 2 seed? We were discussing the 1 seed odds a little bit earlier in the program. Talked about the fact Auburn minus 20,000 to get a 1 seed. Duke minus 6,000. Alabama, heavier favorite to get a 1 seed than Florida minus 320. With their schedule coming up, don't know if that's going to be the case. Florida, Houston minus 115 and minus 110 respectively. St. John's 250 to 1 to get a 1 seed. It seems like it would be a tough task. St. John's was a 4 seed in the bracket preview that we had. Are you I mean, I guess if you win outright and just win every single game all the way through the Big East tournament, you can rack up some pretty big wins. But would running through the Big East give you enough? Because the Big East is not the strongest. You'd be able to rack up the quad 1 wins, though.
Next at DePaul.
Yep.
Then they have UConn and the rematch at Madison Square Garden.
Big revenge spot for the Huskies.
Then at Butler. So you're not racking up points there.
Yeah.
They get Seton Hall, who just beat UConn but only has 7 wins. And then in Milwaukee against Marquette. So you'd have 2 wins, and then you'd probably get
maybe 2 more.
You could get 3 more, I guess. Yeah. But if you're the 1 seed, you're probably only going to get 2 more big wins. So you could get 4 more top 15 wins on your resume. Is that enough? You got to have a lot of teams stub their toe in between you, right?
I think that's part of the problem. Yeah. Now, as we were discussing, a team like Alabama, I mean, their schedule is insane. You're probably going to have, you would think, multiple toe stubs down the stretch when you're taking on 3 of the top 5 teams in Ken Palm before the regular season ends. But they're 250 to 1 for a reason, I think, to get that 1 seed. I don't think that's something I would be really banking on at this point. To go from a 4 seed all the way up to that point to get that last one would be pretty tough for a team like St. John's. We should also know, too, by the way, that was the news coming out of yesterday. Creighton looked like one of the best teams, maybe like the hottest team in the country at one point. They were kind of rolling. You're thinking, oh, man, here we go. They go out on a Saturday and they beat Marquette at home relatively comfortably. And you're like, okay, yeah, it's a natural letdown spot to lose to UConn. But but they've lost 2 straight now. And now Kalk, I think did we see Kalkbrenner get injured over the weekend? It sounds like maybe it's not going to be very serious, but he maybe is going to be missing some time here. So all of a sudden a team like Creighton, which I think is safely into the field, but all of a sudden a team that looked like one of the more dangerous ones coming out of the Big East that looked a little flimsy after like the top 2 or 3. Now down the stretch, you have Georgetown, DePaul, Xavier, Seton Hall, and Butler. It's not going to be the worst stretch ever. Kind of sucks, though. I mean, you think that maybe you're going to be healthy by the time you get to tournament time, but that's a big blow if Kalkbrenner's not going to be fully healthy by the time you get to the NCAA tournament.
Look at maybe an upset, being a victim of an upset in the first round or second round, depending on where they're seated. I want to talk to you about NBA MVP because I know you're on Joker, right?
Yes.
But this disappointing poll result of these NBA GMs is what, 75% said it's SGA?
So I'm a little irritated with myself, actually. I presented this way the other day. I'm irritated with myself that I believed voters would actually do the logical thing that they usually do. So I think you're referencing Tim Bontemps' straw poll, where he polls 100 likely voters for the award. And it's the same format. So you rank your top 5, scores it all the same as an MVP voting. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander got 70 of the 100 first-place votes. Jokic got 30 of the 100 first-place votes. So all of them were divvied up between those two. But Shai got 70 of the first. The reason why I'm irritated both with myself and with the media, in December, the middle of December, Jokic led Shai in first-place votes by about 24 or 25, give or take. Can't remember the exact number. What transpired over the last month and a half, 2 months, that would make you then flip your vote, all of them, to the degree that Shai has 70 of the first-place votes. He's a half game out, Jokic is, of the 2 seed in the Western Conference. So you can't make the argument that it's seeding team, whatever. He, efficiency-wise, Mike, is miles ahead of his impact on his team's net rating than what Shai is. He's going to be the first non-guard to average a triple-double in a regular season, or at least on pace to do it. What changed? And I don't even mind if Shai led. But what changed to that degree? And I don't want to beat up on them too much, but they're the ones that were vocal about this, so I will use them as a little bit of the whipping boy here. Brian Windhorst and Tim McMahon, who were some of the voters that were part of this straw poll. Well, Windhorst specifically, on his podcast, presents the case. He goes, I voted for Jokic the first time around in the straw poll, and I've seen nothing that would make me change my vote. But I voted for Shai. And it's like, okay, I guess. Like, why? If you're presenting that, then why? And then McMahon irritates me because he says, you know what the tiebreaker was? Shai hasn't won one.
I think that's what. But I think that has to be the explanation of Joker fatigue or something like that, right? That they're going to say we need to spread it around.
Yes, and that's why I'm mad at myself because I should have seen it coming. It happens it's why Joel Embiid has an MVP to this day.
You think that was any part of Allen winning it this year?
I think
Lamar
so.
Already had 2?
Yes, I think so. I think it was a Booker McFarland. I thought a great point, which was I don't know when they were talking about it, but essentially he was talking on the NFL Live panel, and he says the only reason we're talking about this between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen is because Lamar has won it already. That's the only thing, because for some reason we have to build up this crazy standard because a guy has won an award before, despite the fact that it's a different regular season and it's a regular season award. And by the way, to bring this back to the NBA thing, Jokic is going through a career year. He's a 3-time MVP having a career year. And yet we have at least one vote measure that says that he's not going to win this award and not come close to it.
Is there 100 people that vote on the NBA awards?
Yeah.
And so he's trying to guess who the 100 will be, but we don't know for sure exactly who it is.
It's likely voters.
I see.
And this exercise, especially the last, because he does 3 every year, the last one I don't believe has been wrong at all. It has been a perfect, the degree, right, the actual vote layout, that's been different, but the outright winner has never been incorrect.
So you now feel SGA is likely going to be the winner?
Yes. Now, what's interesting is if we can throw these up really quickly. So after the poll came out, it was minus 600 in favor of Shai, and it was 4-1, 450 on Jokic. We've seen some market kind of buy back on Jokic because, again, the thought maybe being that if the voters are this fickle, maybe they'll come back around and swing back to Jokic. If he gets the 2 seed, has a massive year, whatever, I don't know what the difference would be. But I find it hard to believe that the voters are going to actually do this, and instead the groupthink will be, Shai's been great. He doesn't have one yet. Let's give it to him.
You think people think about we don't want to give Jokic so many that he'll be considered amongst the greats in the game. Like, we don't want to, you look and you compare him to somebody else that has 4 or 5 MVPs and say, well, we're not really saying he's that good, so we don't want to. Is that any of the mentality?
I'm sure that's part of it. I'm sure it's a ridiculous mentality to have. Like, you should view this in the prism of this season, how great he's been. But I guess we hold them to that standards. All right, coming up next, VSiN Primetime. They got you for the next 4 hours. Bunch of live betting, the 3 games of college hoops. They'll track it all the way through. Humans sitting here getting ready to go. Follow that up by cashing out. I think Greg Hoops Peterson in control, cashing out of the desk today. And then VSiN by the books, bright and early, 7 a.m. to 10 tomorrow here on the network. Mike, it was fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mike will be here tomorrow with Mitch Moss. Moss returns from vacation, so that'll be a ton of fun. And I'll be back on the old stomping grounds of VSiN Primetime. Don't worry. I'll be back here, I think, on Wednesday.
And Thursday, right?
Yes, and Thursday.
And I'll be back Friday.
Yep. VSiN.com. Check out all the work up there and all the great writers that we have. We'll see you tomorrow here on Follow the Money.